Mastering conversation isn't about saying more. It's about meaning more. It's about creating moments that make him think she gets me. Because when you connect through honesty, curiosity, and calm confidence, you don't just capture attention. You build connection that lasts. Most people believe that to hold someone's attention, especially a man's, you have to impress them. They think the key lies in being clever, funny, or constantly saying the right thing. But real connection doesn't happen when you're performing. It happens when you're present. The art of conversation is not a stage performance. It's an exchange of energy, honesty, and attention. And when you focus on connection instead of perfection, everything about the way you speak begins to change. When you try to perform in conversation, your focus shifts from the other person to yourself. You start analyzing your words, your tone, and even your body language, thinking, am I sounding interesting enough? Am I attractive right now? Do they like me? In that moment, you stop being fully engaged. You're not listening to understand. You're listening to respond, to impress, to maintain control. The problem is, genuine chemistry can't exist where there's control. It thrives in freedom. When you're simply being yourself, you give the other person permission to relax too. You create space for authenticity, and that space is magnetic because everyone is secretly craving it in a world filled with people trying to prove themselves. The person who's comfortable just being stands out effortlessly. That's the paradox of real confidence. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. Connecting with someone isn't about saying more. It's about being in tune. It's the subtle energy that says, I see you, I'm here, and I'm not rushing this moment. That presence speaks louder than any line or story you could ever share. When a man senses that you're not auditioning for his approval, but genuinely curious about who he is, he naturally feels safer to be himself. And when a person feels safe, they open up, they talk more, they share more, they connect more deeply. It's the difference between a conversation that feels like a transaction and one that feels like a connection. A transactional conversation sounds like two people trading words for validation, each one waiting for their turn to sound impressive. A connected conversation flows. It's natural, effortless, and often unpredictable. You stop thinking about what to say next because you're truly listening. You respond to what's real in the moment, not what's rehearsed. There's a simple truth. People remember how you make them feel, not how perfect your words were. They won't remember every sentence, but they'll remember if they felt at ease around you, if they felt interesting, understood, and seen. That's what connection does. It bypasses the surface and reaches something emotional. It's the kind of feeling that makes someone think about you long after the conversation ends. If you want to master the art of conversation, begin by dropping the need to perform. You don't need to sound impressive. You need to be interested. You don't need to chase the perfect sentence. You need to be fully engaged in the imperfect ones. When you're connected to what you feel, your words flow naturally. And when you're connected to who you're speaking to, they feel that alignment instantly. True communication is less about words and more about presence. You might say something simple, but if you say it with real emotion, real curiosity, and real warmth, it will land far deeper than any practice speech ever could, because people aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for real connection. Over performance means you don't chase approval, you create resonance. You don't overthink what to say, you focus on what to feel. The moment you stop performing and start connecting, you unlock the kind of effortless conversation that leaves both people better than they were before. That's not just good communication. That's emotional intelligence in action. It's the quiet power of being fully present, fully real, and fully human. Curiosity is one of the most underrated forms of attraction. Most people think they need to be interesting in conversation, but the truth is, the most magnetic people are those who are genuinely interested. Curiosity isn't about asking a list of questions or pretending to care. It's about a mindset, a genuine desire to understand the person sitting in front of you. When you bring that energy into a conversation with a man, it completely changes the dynamic. It transforms the interaction from surface level talk into something meaningful and memorable. When you're curious, you listen differently. You stop waiting for your turn to speak and start hearing what's really being said, not just in words, but in tone, in pauses, and in emotion. You notice when he lights up about something or when he hesitates. You become attuned to the subtext, the story beneath the story. That's what makes people feel understood. And when someone feels understood, they start to trust you. Trust is what opens the door to deeper connection. Most conversations fail because both people are trying to be seen rather than trying to see. They're both performing, both seeking validation, both hoping to be liked. But when you shift your focus outward, when you make the other person feel interesting, you become the person everyone wants to talk to. Why? Because most people rarely get that kind of attention. They rarely feel that someone is truly listening without judgment, without rushing, without distraction. The kind of curiosity that builds chemistry isn't about interrogation. It's about engagement. It's asking questions that invite emotion, not just facts. Instead of asking, what do? You might ask, what made you choose that path? Or what part of that makes you feel most fulfilled? These questions don't just gather information, they invite reflection. They make the person stop and think, and in that pause, connection deepens. Curiosity also shows confidence. When you're genuinely curious, you're not afraid of silence, of not knowing, or of letting the other person lead the conversation for a while. You're not trying to prove your worth through your words. You're comfortable enough to explore someone else's world. That calm confidence is incredibly attractive because it shows emotional security. You're not performing to impress, you're connecting to understand. And when you truly listen, people reveal more than they planned to. They'll tell you about their passions, their struggles, their fears, and their dreams, sometimes without realizing how deeply they've opened up. That's the magic of curiosity. It disarms. It softens the walls that people build around themselves. It makes them feel safe. A conversation rooted in curiosity creates a rhythm, a natural flow. You ask, they share, you respond, and the dialogue becomes alive. It's not forced. It's not about clever responses. It's about presence. You stop worrying about whether you're being charming or funny, and you start being real. That authenticity is far more powerful than any rehearsed charm could ever be. There's another subtle but powerful effect curiosity has. It makes you more memorable. When you ask the right questions, you stand out from everyone else who only asks surface-level things. You make him think differently about himself, and that's a feeling people don't forget. They associate that sense of being seen and valued with you. Mastering the art of conversation with men isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions with the right energy. It's about bringing genuine interest into every exchange and being fully present in the moment. Because when curiosity leads, chemistry follows naturally. Curiosity is connection in motion. It tells someone you matter, your story matters. And when someone feels that from you, they don't just talk, they open up, they don't just listen, they engage. That's the difference between small talk and soul talk. That's how curiosity transforms ordinary conversation into real, lasting connection. Silence often feels uncomfortable for many people, especially in the early stages of getting to know someone. We've been taught to believe that if there's a pause in the conversation, something's wrong, that we need to fill it quickly to keep the energy alive. But the truth is, the ability to sit comfortably in silence is one of the most powerful communication skills you can have. It signals confidence, composure, and emotional security. When you can be quiet without feeling awkward, you show that you are not dependent on constant validation or noise to feel valuable. That level of calm presence speaks volumes, especially to a man. When you rush to fill every pause, it communicates anxiety. It tells the other person that you're afraid of being judged, that you're trying too hard to keep their attention. But when you can allow a conversation to breathe, you're sending a very different message. You're saying, I'm comfortable in this moment. I don't need to impress you. I just enjoy being here. That unspoken confidence is deeply attractive because it's rare. People who can handle silence project inner strength. They don't need constant reassurance to feel comfortable in connection. Silence also gives space for depth. When every second is filled with chatter, there's no room for reflection, for emotion, or for sincerity to emerge. Some of the most meaningful moments in conversation happen in those quiet gaps. The seconds after someone shares something personal, when you simply let their words sink in. That pause tells them, I'm listening. I'm absorbing this. I value what you just said. It shows respect. And that kind of attention builds trust far faster than quick replies ever could. Men in particular often process thoughts differently. They may take longer pauses to think before they speak or to find the right words. When you rush those moments, you interrupt their rhythm. But when you give them space, you create room for authenticity. You invite honesty instead of performance. You show that you can handle stillness, that you're not afraid of emotional pauses. That's the kind of energy that makes someone open up more deeply because they feel no pressure to perform either. Being confident in silence doesn't mean you're detached. It means you're emotionally grounded. You're not seeking approval through constant words. You understand that connection doesn't always come from talking. Sometimes it comes from simply being. It's in the shared quiet where comfort and safety grow. Think about the people you feel closest to. Often, those relationships have moments of silence that feel completely natural. That's not a lack of communication, that's connection in its purest form. When you're comfortable in those pauses, you also become a better listener. You start paying attention to the small cues, body language, tone, expression, that often say more than words do. You begin to hear the emotion behind what's being said. This makes your responses more thoughtful and more aligned with the moment. That kind of presence can turn even a short conversation into something meaningful, because you're not just talking. You're connecting. Silence is not emptiness, it's space. And space allows attraction to breathe. When you're not constantly filling every gap, you create anticipation. You allow moments to linger. The eye contact, the shared smile, the unspoken tension. All of it becomes more powerful when you're not afraid of quiet. The pause becomes a language of its own, one that communicates depth, composure, and confidence. Mastering the art of conversation isn't just about what you say, it's also about when you say nothing. It's about understanding that presence doesn't always require words. Sometimes the strongest message is delivered in calm silence, the kind that says, I'm here, I'm grounded, I'm not rushing this. When you embody that energy, you don't just hold a man's attention, you hold his respect, because comfort in silence is the mark of someone who's not seeking to impress, but is confident enough simply to be. When it comes to creating genuine connection, most people underestimate how much energy matters. Words are only part of the equation. Tone, body language, and emotional presence often say far more. The way you make someone feel while speaking to them determines whether they walk away intrigued, comfortable, or disconnected. That's where emotional mirroring becomes powerful. It's not about copying or mimicking someone. It's about aligning your energy with theirs so the interaction feels effortless and natural. When you meet a person where they are emotionally, you build an invisible bridge of understanding. Think about the last time you talked to someone who completely missed your emotional tone. Maybe you were excited and they responded flatly. Or maybe you were serious and they made a joke. You probably felt a subtle disconnect, as though you weren't fully understood. Emotional mirroring prevents that. When someone speaks passionately and you respond with matching enthusiasm, it signals that you're engaged and present. When they're calm or reflective, and you soften your tone to meet that energy, it communicates empathy and attunement. People naturally open up to those who make them feel in sync. This principle is in manipulation, it's awareness, it's emotional intelligence in practice. Everyone has an internal rhythm in conversation, and when you learn to match that rhythm, you create comfort. You show that you're not just listening to words, but to emotion. That level of attention is rare, and it's what makes people feel truly seen. Men, in particular, often find emotional expression difficult, but they notice emotional alignment. When you match their tone without judgment or interruption, they feel safe to be more authentic. Mirroring energy also builds subconscious rapport. Human beings are wired to feel closer to those who reflect aspects of themselves. When someone mirrors our mood, our body language, or even our pace of speech, our brain registers them as familiar. Familiarity feels safe, and safety breeds trust. This is why you can feel instantly comfortable with a stranger who just seems to get you. It's not magic, it's emotional resonance. But mirroring isn't imitation. If it becomes exaggerated or forced, it loses authenticity. The goal is to feel what the other person is feeling, not to copy their gestures or repeat their words. You're not performing, you're aligning. That means staying true to your natural energy while allowing it to flow with theirs. For instance, if a man is sharing something vulnerable, you don't have to speak in the exact same tone, but you can soften your presence, maintain steady eye contact, and show quiet attentiveness. Those subtle shifts tell him you're emotionally tuned in. This skill also helps navigate tension or misunderstanding. If the person you're speaking to becomes defensive or distant, mirroring their calmness rather than reacting with frustration can diffuse the moment. Instead of matching negative energy, you stabilize it. Emotional mirroring, when done with intention, can guide a conversation back to connection. It's not about control. It's about understanding where the other person is and responding from empathy, not ego. This practice makes communication feel effortless. Conversations stop feeling like mental work and start flowing like a shared experience. You no longer worry about what to say next because you're fully present. You respond to what's happening, not to what you rehearsed. That natural flow is what makes someone think. There's just something about her energy. Emotional mirroring teaches you the balance between awareness and authenticity. It's about recognizing someone's emotional state without losing your own. You remain grounded while staying flexible enough to connect. That blend of empathy and self-assurance creates chemistry that feels deep, comfortable, and real. At the heart of it, mirroring is simply about making someone feel understood, not with grand gestures, but with quiet sensitivity. It's saying, without words, I'm here with you. I get this moment. And when you bring that kind of emotional awareness into conversation, you transform ordinary exchanges into moments of connection that linger long after the words have ended. Authenticity is the cornerstone of powerful communication. It's what separates surface-level attraction from genuine connection. When you show up as your true self, unfiltered, unapologetic, and honest, you give the other person permission to do the same. Yet so many people lose that authenticity. The moment they start caring about how they're being perceived, they begin to adjust, edit, or shrink themselves to fit into what they think will be liked or accepted. But every time you do that, you disconnect from your natural power. The most captivating people aren't the ones who try to please everyone. They're the ones who are grounded in who they are, regardless of who's watching. When you seek approval, you hand over control of your energy. You begin to shape your words, your opinions, even your humor around what might earn validation. But that makes you predictable, safe, and ultimately forgettable. What truly draws people in is confidence, and confidence is born from authenticity. It's the quiet knowing that you don't need to perform to be worthy of attention. You don't have to agree with everything someone says to be likable. In fact, having your own voice respectfully expressed is what builds respect in return. Authenticity doesn't mean oversharing or being brutally honest without thought. It means showing up as you are, without masks, without excessive filtering. It's allowing your quirks, your emotions, and your real thoughts to be part of the interaction. When a man senses that your words align with your energy, that your reactions are genuine, and that your smile is real, he feels something rare: trust. People can feel when something is off, when someone's trying too hard or saying what they think should be said. That disconnect breaks attraction faster than silence ever could. When your authentic conversation flows differently, you're not trying to guess what the right thing to say is. You're simply responding from your truth. You can laugh at yourself, admit when you don't know something, or even express a differing opinion. And it doesn't shake your confidence. That kind of self-assuredness is magnetic because It communicates emotional stability. It says, I know who I am. I'm comfortable with it. That's the kind of energy that draws the right people closer. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Authenticity also creates emotional depth. When you're willing to be open to share a genuine thought, a real feeling, or a vulnerable moment, it invites the other person to lower their guard too. Vulnerability inspires vulnerability. It turns small talk into meaningful dialogue. You don't have to bare your soul. You just have to be honest enough to be human. Maybe it's admitting you were nervous, or that you found something genuinely funny, or that a topic made you think differently. Those small, honest moments are what make conversation memorable. Trying to gain approval, on the other hand, drains your presence. It keeps you performing instead of connecting. You start measuring your worth by how much attention or praise you get rather than how true you stay to yourself. But approval-based communication always feels unstable because it depends on something outside your control. Authenticity, however, centers you. It's the difference between speaking to be liked and speaking from conviction. Men are often drawn to women who have that quiet, unshakable authenticity. Not because it's loud or showy, but because it feels real. It's energy that can't be faked when you're unapologetically yourself. Your words carry weight. Your laughter feels sincere. Your presence becomes grounded, not grasping. That's what creates genuine attraction. Not manipulation, but truth. The beauty of authenticity is that it naturally filters what's right for you. When you show up as yourself, the wrong people fall away and the right ones feel safe to step closer. You no longer chase connection. You attract it. You no longer seek approval. You earn respect. Mastering conversation isn't just about technique. It's about alignment. When your outer words reflect your inner truth, you radiate confidence, peace, and strength. That's the kind of authenticity that doesn't just start conversations. It leaves a lasting impression. The sixth and often overlooked element of mastering conversation is emotional awareness, the ability to read the energy of a moment and respond from empathy rather than habit. Most people listen only to words, but emotionally aware people listen between the lines. They notice what's not being said, the shift in tone, the pause before an answer, the subtle cues that reveal how someone truly feels. This kind of awareness turns ordinary conversations into meaningful exchanges because it shows that you're not just hearing, you're feeling, you're not just reacting, you're understanding. When you cultivate emotional awareness, you stop operating from assumptions. You begin to notice when a man seems distracted, when his words don't match his tone, when he's trying to impress you instead of being authentic. That awareness gives you choices. You can shift your energy, slow down, or ask a question that invites openness instead of pressure. Emotional awareness is not about control. It's about sensitivity, an intuitive understanding of when to speak, when to listen, and when silence says more than words ever could. This skill requires presence. You can't be emotionally aware if you're busy worrying about how you appear or what to say next. True awareness happens when you're fully engaged in the moment, observing without judgment. When you sense that someone is nervous, instead of filling the silence or overcompensating, you might soften your tone or share something that makes the atmosphere lighter. That shift communicates safety. It tells the other person you don't have to perform here. And that, more than anything, deepens connection. Emotional awareness also helps you communicate your own feelings with clarity and confidence. When you're in tune with yourself, you don't suppress emotions or express them chaotically. You express them consciously. You can say, that made me smile, or I felt a little hurt by that, without drama or defensiveness. This kind of honesty is powerful because it builds trust. People learn that they can be real with you because you're real with yourself. In conversation with men, emotional awareness creates balance. Sometimes men express affection or vulnerability differently than you might expect. Instead of looking for familiar signs of emotion, emotional awareness helps you see it in the ways they naturally show it, through action, subtle compliments, or moments of quiet presence. When you recognize and appreciate those expressions instead of judging them, you meet them where they are. You speak a language they understand. not through words, but through emotional attunement. This awareness also teaches you when to pull closer and when to give space. Not every pause needs to be filled, and not every silence means disinterest. Sometimes someone just needs time to think, to feel, to breathe. Emotionally aware people know how to read that difference. They understand that space is not rejection, it's part of connection. By allowing someone to exist in their own rhythm, you create harmony instead of tension. Emotional awareness brings emotional maturity into conversation. It turns reactive communication into responsive communication. Instead of matching frustration with frustration, you ground yourself first. Instead of trying to win an argument, you seek to understand that calm strength is magnetic because it communicates emotional stability, something everyone unconsciously craves. Emotional awareness allows you to connect without losing yourself. You remain present, open, and receptive, but you also maintain your boundaries. You don't absorb another person's mood. You recognize it and choose your response intentionally. That's what makes you powerful in conversation. Not the loudness of your voice, but the quiet intelligence behind it. When you master emotional awareness, you create a space where people feel understood and safe, but also challenged to be real. You become someone who listens deeply, speaks thoughtfully, and connects authentically. And that kind of presence is unforgettable. Because emotional awareness isn't just a conversational skill. It's a form of wisdom that makes every word, every pause, and every moment matter. At the heart of every powerful conversation lies one simple truth. Connection is never about perfection. It's not about saying all the right things, performing the right emotions, or being endlessly charming. It's about presence. It's about showing up as the most grounded, authentic version of yourself and allowing the other person to do the same when you replace performance with connection, curiosity with genuine interest, silence with confidence, and words with emotional awareness. Everything about the way you communicate changes. The art of conversation with men, or with anyone, isn't a formula to memorize. It's a mindset to embody. It's the courage to be real, the patience to listen, and the wisdom to let each moment unfold naturally. You don't need to chase approval when you understand your worth. You don't need to fight for attention when your energy already speaks for you. True confidence doesn't shout. It's quiet, calm, and deeply self-assured. The more you practice these principles, the more effortless your interactions become. You'll notice that people lean in when you speak, that they relax around you, that they feel seen without judgment. That's the power of genuine communication. It creates safety, trust, and attraction without manipulation. The next time you find yourself in conversation, don't focus on being impressive. Focus on being present. Let curiosity lead you. Let silence breathe. Mirror the moment with empathy. Stay rooted in your truth, because when you speak from that place, the place of confidence, awareness, and authenticity, you don't just master the art of conversation, you master the art of connection.